Hi, my name is Andy Knight. I'm the director of the Lab at SCR, and I'm here to talk about the Pacific Playwrights Festival. So if you want to hear more about that, check out this conversation.
Theater experience. Why is it such a unique format, both for the audience and the actors performing it?
I think that theater is totally unique to itself because it is both a collective experience and an individual experience, both for the audiences and the theater makers, certainly the actors performing the play and everyone supporting it backstage. It is an art form where you collectively take in a story together and feed off of both the audience and the live performers in front of you. And so in that sense, you have a collective experience. You are enjoying something with others and feeding off of their sort of reactions. But it's also an individual experience because everyone is going to see a play differently. Everyone in that space together is also having an individual experience watching the play on their own.
Would you also to expand it? Would you also say it's a unique community experience? Tell us how this is a community experience for the local Orange County, Southern California.
Yeah, it's also a unique experience for local audiences here in Orange County coming to South Coast Repertory because we are making theater for our community and the plays that we're producing on our stages or developing in our festivals and various workshops are plays that are being grown here in Orange County for South Coast Repertory audiences. And so it certainly speaks to the environment that we were in, the communities that we belong to. And that's what makes it sort of a truly special and local experience as well.
Tell us about the SCR Pacific Playwright Festival history and why is it such an important part of the South Coast Repertory Theater?
Yeah, so we've been doing the Pacific Playwrights Festival since 1998 here at South Coast Repertory. It's had various formats within it, but now it includes 7 new plays across 3 days, 5 staged readings, and 2 world premiere productions. And it's become a really integral part of the South Coast Repertory producing pipeline and also as a national showcase for new plays. Many of the world premieres that end up on South Coast Repertory stages in full production begin their development process here in the Pacific Playwrights Festival. Many of the plays that we commission here at South Coast Repertory are developed in the Pacific Playwrights Festival. So it's really a first look at some of the stuff that might end up on our stages. And then beyond that, the Pacific Playwrights Festival has launched so many plays into the American theater canon over the years, both plays that we've developed, plays that we've produced, and then plays that we've developed and produced have gone on to productions on Broadway, off Broadway, and around the regional circuit here in the United States, and as well as abroad. And so it's really become a pinnacle event for us each spring and each season here at SCR.
Why are play readings so important to the creation of a play or a musical for both the playwright and also for the theater who's producing it?
Mhm. Play readings are a really important part of the developmental process of a play because theater is meant to be experienced live, and plays are written documents that are meant to be performed. They're meant to be heard in the air. So very often, play readings are the first time that we are able to both like the staff at South Coast Repertory, but also the audiences that come to South Coast Repertory are able to hear a play and begin to imagine what it might look like in 3 dimensions. As a part of that, it's also an opportunity for the playwright and the director and all the artists involved to understand what is working, what is resonating with audiences, what isn't working, what jokes are getting laughs, what jokes aren't getting laughs, what moments are moving audiences, when are they leaning in, when are they leaning back, when is it too short, when is it too long? All of those questions that people have as they're writing plays, as they're workshopping plays, so often are quickly answered once you get it out in front of an audience in a new play reading. The other great thing about play readings is, as a developmental step, it allows you to have a certain amount of focus on sort of how text transfers into performance without worrying about all of the sort of physical and production elements at the very same time. How are we going to make this work is a different question than how does this sound in the air when an actor speaks it, which is a different question than how does this work on the page. And so it lets you kind of really focus on those last two answers. How's it working on the page? How does it sound in the air? Before you then move on to the step of like, how does this exist in three dimensions as a holistic experience?
And to add on, do you think that this excites the people who see the reading and then the next year or two, then they see potentially the full production? It gets them excited to actually come back to this play.
Yeah, I think it really does excite people to see something in a reading format and then to come back and get to see it in a full production. And I think that, that functions on a few levels. Certainly, you get to be sort of like the first one that gets to experience the piece when you see it in the reading, and then you remember the moments that you love and the things that were exciting about the play, and then you get to see how they did it, how they figured it out, how they made it work in its full form. You also get to see what's changed, how the play's grown. Many of these plays that we develop in the festival as a part of readings go on to many different developmental steps. Sometimes where we go back and we do more development and we do another reading of it, whether that has a public component or not, but just time for the playwright, the director, and the cast to sort of really look at the text. And then we also start to sometimes do production workshops where we start to really say, okay, let's bring everyone who builds this play together here at South Coast Repertory so they can start thinking about all aspects of the play. And over the course of that time, the play will really change. And so very often what you experienced in your mind's eye when you saw a staged reading and where the play actually ends up in production are very, very different things. So it's really fun to see something in development and then get to see it in its full form as a production.
Tell us about the 2025 Pacific Playwrights Festival, the playwrights, the readings, and full productions.
As I mentioned, we have seven new plays as a part of the Pacific Playwrights Festival this year. Two of those plays are world premiere productions, which I'll talk about first. The very first world premiere production that we are opening here at South Coast Rep is on the Segerstrom stage. It is a play called "You Are Cordially Invited to the End of the World" by Keiko Green. This play was developed in the 2024 festival, so just last year we had it as a staged reading in the festival. And it's a really exciting, funny, moving, kaleidoscopic play that looks at the idea of living and dying and existing and continuing to survive through it all. It's very much a family story. It centers on a father and a family being diagnosed with a terminal illness and how the world sort of opens up when that happens. He sees a connection between the environmental degradation around him, the world in a respect is dying while he is also dying. He sees that link and it sort of changes everything. It changes how he sees everything. So it's a really sort of beautiful, thoughtful piece in that respect. But it's also wildly funny. It is a comedy. Keiko Green is sort of a brilliant comedic writer, so imaginative. So audiences that come see that show are really going to have this like complete and full experience, this really sort of rich, wild, funny ride that then really moves you by the end of the play. The second world premiere production that we actually just started rehearsals for this week is The Staircase by Noa Gardner. That is an SCR commission, and we developed it in our 2023 Pacific Playwrights Festival, so two festivals ago. And we're so excited to finally have it come to fruition on our stages here. Noah's play tells the story of a Hawaiian family or Hawaiian mother and son living together on the island and trying to navigate a tricky and thorny past while also trying to look ahead at the future. It's a really beautiful meditative play that combines Hawaiian myth, Oli or Hawaiian chant, Pahu drumming, Hawaiian drumming in the piece creates this sort of wonderful tapestry that you're going to see on the stage while telling a really moving and heartfelt story about a challenging relationship between a mother and a son and a family at large. It's really beautiful. This is Noah's first professional production, so we're excited to partner with him on that. And I think that audiences are really going to love the piece. Our five staged readings. The first reading is a play called Rachel, Nevada by Jose Sebastian Alberti. It tells a story that is set in Rachel, Nevada, which is very, very close to Roswell, and so there is a sort of close encounters feel to the piece that is telling a story about grief and love and connection. It is a really beautifully sort of like rich language, emotion, and subtext driven piece. And Sebastian's a very exciting writer. Sebastian is also commissioned with South Coast Repertory. This is actually not his SCR commission, but we're excited to share his work with audiences here at SCR. The second reading is a play called The Red Man by Jacoby Johnson, and it is a story of a twin brother and sister, an adult twin brother and sister who are in Florida, who are sort of reeling from some big changes in their lives that are connected to a long-held secret within their family. It is a horror play. It is wildly energetic and funny. And Jacoby is a really beautiful poetic writer. And so I think you're going to have a really dynamic experience if you come see The Red Man. The third play is a play called Eat Me by Talene Monahan. And Talene Monahan's play Eat Me, you can see, you have three opportunities to see it across the weekend, once on Friday night, once on Saturday night, and once on Sunday afternoon. It is a story about consumption. It is a story about how you go through the world and find what gives you pleasure, what gives you sustenance, what moves you forward in both a metaphorical way and sometimes a literal way. Um, it's very, very funny. It's very sharp. It is an extremely exciting experience because you sometimes don't know what you're going to be confronted with next in this piece in terms of where the story is going to go, how these characters are going to evolve and change. And so it packs these wonderful surprises into Lean's writing. Um, on Saturday morning, we have a reading called 10 Grand by Kate Cortese. That is also an SCR commission. And that is a play that is set in a Goodwill in Boston in around 2010. And it is a really wonderfully character-driven piece. It tells the story of both the people that work at the Goodwill and also the sort of customers that come in. And it looks at the huge stakes within what seem like tiny lives and how those things can blossom open once you get to know people. And then the final reading we have is a play called Trip Around the Sun by Jake Brash. That's on Sunday morning. It follows two retirees who live in a community a sort of Jimmy Buffett themed community for parrot head retirees. And it is an elderly couple who are prepared to leave for a big cruise for Sue's the wife's birthday. But the night before they leave, Phil, the husband, sort of drops a big surprise on her, and so it's about the night before they leave and trying to figure out what to do. It's very funny. It's very lively. It's ultimately a moving piece. Jake is a wonderful writer who has such a sharp and exciting wit, and so we're excited to introduce him to our audiences as well.
What do you want the local SoCal theater community and theater creatives to get out of your play festival?
We want Southern California audiences and new play lovers to come to the festival and experience a wide array of stories. That's really important. We want audiences to come into each reading and feel like they're hearing a story, they're experiencing a story in a way that was completely unlike the one they saw before that. We want audiences to laugh. We want audiences to feel things. We want audiences to come and have a collective experience and mingle and talk about the plays and share what excited them, share when they were leaning forward and couldn't get enough about the piece. And we also want to give audiences a sneak peek of plays that might end up on South Coast Repertory stages.
Heard this mentioned several times when I'm at your festival. People say live theater is good for the soul. Why is live theater good for the soul?
Live theater is good for the soul because it speaks to the world. Since theater is a live event that is happening in front of you in that moment, it inherently speaks to where you are at that moment. Whatever you're bringing into the theater, whatever you're setting aside at the theater door as an audience member, it is a very special experience that only happens in that moment. And then once again, the idea of hearing stories, experiencing stories creates empathy. It puts, frankly, it gives your body serotonin, gives you adrenaline at times. It physically it makes you feel better. And then there's also the aspect that it's a social experience. And, it's something that we need right now. We need to get out of our houses. We need to be with other people and sort of remember each other's humanity and why it's so important and why it's at the essence of why we do what we do in our everyday lives.
And why is the SCR Playwright Festival so important, not only to your theater, but the whole theater community?
The Pacific Playwrights Festival is important to both South Coast Repertory and the greater theater community because it is a chance to launch plays. It is a chance. We have a big, huge group of local new play fans who come to the festival, but we also have many industry professionals from other theaters from across the country coming to see these new plays to see what they might produce on their stages. So these plays by being in the festival are really launched into the world in a sense. And so they are the sort of very often the next great classics. And audiences at South Coast Repertory get to see them first.
What is your favorite part of this festival?
My favorite part of the festival, um, I would say that my favorite part of the festival is kind of what I referenced earlier of getting to see seven completely different stories told in a very condensed period of time. Since it's only 3 days, you're seeing a lot of plays. To get seven plays in across 3 days, you're getting a lot of back-to-back play experiences. And that's actually it's really fatiguing. It takes your brain power, it takes your heart power. But I think that once you see those seven plays, you see those dynamic experiences, you feel so incredibly full. So I would say that when we're in that final reading on Sunday morning, it's actually my favorite part of the festival because I'm sort of my mind is going really fast. It's really spinning because of all the theatrical experiences that I've had.
There's a little extra thing that you get if you go see all 3 days is the playwrights panel. Why is that such a unique experience, the SCR Playwrights panel?
Yeah, the Sunday morning playwrights panel is a sort of an extra bonus feature for festival diehards. It's free, it's open to the public, it's not ticketed, anyone can come. But we usually find that the people that have seen everything across the weekend are the ones that they are most excited to attend the panel. And it's wonderful because it's an opportunity to, in a great way, you're meeting these plays with very little context about what the writer was thinking about when they were writing it, what the play is even about. We just have these very short blurbs. And so you're kind of coming into these reading and production experiences with very little context about them. And so the playwrights panel is finally a chance for the writers to speak to the work that they've done and why they wrote the plays that they wrote and what those plays mean to them. And it's also your chance as audiences to have some time to ask questions of the playwrights about what you experienced, what their process is as a writer, and if they haven't shared it already, what their inspiration for the play was.
Concerning the two full play productions, why did you choose those two plays as the cornerstone for this Playwright Festival?
I mean, for many reasons. I think that they're exceptional pieces of writing. They're exceptional pieces of theater. Both are really speaking to a deeply contemporary human experience. They are incredibly moving while also being incredibly lively pieces of theatrical writing. So certainly that first and huge guiding light of the quality of these pieces. But also we also think about the festival when we're curating both the full productions and then also the stage readings themselves, about how all these pieces are going to fit together for anyone coming to the full experience. We don't want two full productions on our stages that are really similar to each other since they're playing next to each other. And I think Keiko and Noah's plays both have that exemplary quality while also being vividly different pieces of writing.
Can you talk about how people can experience a weekend, the different public packages, how they can purchase tickets, either individually or as a package?
Yeah, absolutely. So audiences can come to the festival in a variety of ways. Certainly, if you go online, if you go to scr.org, there's going to be a link at the top under productions that will lead you to the Pacific Playwrights Festival webpage. And there you can buy individual tickets. If you only have a day to spare, you only have a couple hours on one day to spare, come see a reading. You can just come see one reading individually. You can also buy a package to all five readings. And then in addition to the package of five readings, if you really want to go for the full experience and you haven't seen the two productions yet, you can also buy tickets to the productions. And we're very careful with how we schedule the festival that you can catch everything and not miss anything because while some things play at the same time, there's always an opportunity to see it at a different time if you're catching something. So there are a variety of ways, and if you visit scr.org, you can find all the ways there.
Very important question. Why should or must the SoCal theater community attend the Pacific Playwrights Festival at South Coast Repertory?
I think that the SoCal theater community and the greater SoCal community should come see the Pacific Playwrights Festival at South Coast Repertory because theater is an integral part of the human experience. If you haven't been to the theater, I encourage you to come because you will certainly be changed. And you should come because new plays need audiences. New plays need you to hear that play first, so the artists working on the plays can hear what you think of the play while it's in its early stages. And I think people should also come because it's a fun new play party. It's a wildly social, boisterous, energetic event, and you shouldn't miss out on some fun.
To have a great playwrights festival, which you always do, there must be a pipeline and department that prepares and guides the playwrights to get them to the playwrights
Mhm.
festival. Tell us about the lab at SCR and the different commissions that you do offer to these different playwrights.
Yeah, so the Pacific Playwrights Festival is part of the Lab at SCR, which is sort of the umbrella term for all the new play programs here at South Coast Repertory, which includes, in addition to the festival, our samples from the Lab program, in-house workshops, all of our new play commissions, and all of that. As you mentioned, is sort of a pipeline to put new plays on our stages. So we have about between 50 to 60 active commissions where we've basically hired playwrights to write plays for South Coast Repertory or to write plays with South Coast Repertory in mind. And SCR has an opportunity to work with those playwrights as they're writing a brand new play. So it is a way for us to kind of get in at the point of inception at the ground floor on these new plays. And then we have a variety of developmental programs too that can happen before PPF, before something is read in PPF as a developmental reading, and certainly after it's read in PPF as we look towards producing it. And those programs include our samples from the Lab program, which is a sort of flexible public program that happens as pop-ups throughout the year. Pop-ups meaning they aren't scheduled too far in advance. We usually schedule them about a month in advance because they're really about, hey, if you're an artist coming to develop your new play at South Coast Repertory through a workshop, and it is useful to have a small audience come and see the piece so you can get feedback, what's going to be helpful for them to hear. So that can be a traditional staged reading like the readings in our Pacific Playwrights Festival, but it could also be reading excerpts. It could also be reading a first act or reading a couple alternate scenes that the playwright isn't sure about that they want to hear an audience's reaction to. It could be, if we're working on a new musical, hearing selected songs from the new musical, just getting folks who are SCR audiences into the theater to be part of the developmental process itself. So it's almost like throwing open the doors of the rehearsal room, as opposed to creating a presentation to share with audiences specifically. And then we have all kinds of in-house workshops. In-house meaning there isn't a public component. There isn't an audience attending that. And that's because very often that's very kind of specific process-driven work where the playwright and director or the team might be looking at something very specific that frankly is not ready for public consumption or sometimes is less interesting for an audience to see. And so those are what we call our in-house workshops.
What would you tell other playwrights, actors, directors, and artists why they should get involved with great theater like South Coast Repertory?
I would tell theater artists to get involved with South Coast Repertory because we are very much an artist-driven institution. We are an institution that wants to serve artists. We work with so many artists across a season, and so many artists of different disciplines, certainly playwrights, directors, actors, also designers, dramaturgs, consultants, other generative artists. And so I would encourage them to work with South Coast Repertory because we love play, we love experimentation, we love supporting artists and meeting new artists and working with them. So many of the artists, for example, that we're working with on our stages are emerging writers and emerging artists, and that's a very exciting and important aspect of our programming because those are the future greats of tomorrow.
As you know, but not everybody in public knows this, that ticket sales don't actually cover a play production. That's only like a third at the most. So this is why I asked this question. How can people help theaters like you more, whether it's by donation? Tell us how people can help the great theater, South Coast Repertory Theater.
Yeah, there are so many ways to support South Coast Repertory. I always say, first and foremost, the most important thing that you can do is to buy a ticket and come to the theater. That is our lifeblood. Theater needs audiences, and it is so important that butts are in seats. But there are also ways if you visit our website that if you want to support South Coast Repertory as a donor, we love that. We're very excited to meet new people through their donations. And you often get perks if you're a donor to South Coast Repertory, inside access, a first look at things. And you can come to our first night, our opening night performances. So if you go to our webpage, scr.org, there will be a button that says support, and that will show you the variety of ways that you can donate to South Coast Repertory. Hi, my name is Andy Knight. I am the director of the lab at Coast Repertory. I encourage folks to come. I encourage folks to try something new, to dip your toe in the water. If you want to come to one reading, that's great. And if you want to come to all seven events, that's even better. To come to the Pacific Playwrights Festival at South Coast Repertory because it's the best way to see seven brand new plays in the Southern California area.
This play is truly nothing like you've ever seen before. Um, I've never had a play get this much love, and I think it's because it feels extremely unique. And, a huge part of that is just how it came about. It's so personal, though not autobiographical, but it also deals with giant themes, but it's also really funny. The design is I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. It's just going to be a really really cool show. And I think that it kind of gets to the bottom of like what we love about theater, which is that you never know what's going to come next, but it also packs a hell of a punch. Hi, I'm Keiko Green. I wrote You Were Cordially Invited to the End of the World, and if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about the play, please listen to our interview.
The theater experience, why is it such a unique format, both for the audience and the actors?
Yeah, I think that, people talk about the liveness of theater. I think for me, there's a big difference writing for theater versus writing for TV or film. I talk about this a lot actually, how TV and film is so action based. So all of our, when we're writing a script, it's kind of just like we're really beating out just the action beats, and so we go from this to this to this. When we write for theater, it's about the consequences to the actions. So we have a big action beat, but maybe the juiciest part of the scene is going to be the consequences and how people react to those actions. And I think that is something that does feel unique to theater. I mean, even though more playwrights are writing for TV, more than ever, it seems, there's still something about the theater that feels like we are allowing ourselves to sit in discomfort and sometimes dread, and just there's some, because it doesn't necessarily cut that quickly. We have to just I think it's actually really really important for audiences to remember that it's okay to be a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. And you can see something coming where you're seeing like a character you love dig themselves into a larger and larger and larger hole, and we feel, and especially if it's someone that we're seeing right in front of us, I mean, we really feel for them. We feel for the consequences that are to come, and I think that empathy muscle is, as cheesy as it is it's really important for us to be cultivating in the U.S. right now.
When did you first hear about South Coast Repertory, and why did you want to work with the team at SCR?
So I first came to South Coast Rep. I was actually, this is when I was more working as an actor. I was cast in the world premiere of this play, The Great Leap. That was a co-production between the Denver Center and Seattle Rep. And we opened our production in Denver Center, and we had like 2-3 weeks off before we were going to Seattle Rep to do the second leg of the run. And during that break, I was able to come down and see the world premiere of Cambodian rock band, which was because we were both it was the two big Lauren Yi world premieres that year. And so I came down, and my husband's from Orange County, and he took acting classes at South Coast Rep when he was a kid. So he was so excited. I was like, I think I want to go down and see the other show. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We can visit my parents, So we made a big trip out of it. And the experience of watching Cambodian rock band, the only tickets we could get were front row, which is amazing. And the experience of watching Cambodian rock band there really kind of blew my mind. I wasn't I didn't know what to expect really, but you know, and obviously that show has gone on to have a humongous life afterwards. But yeah, the moment I saw that, I was like, oh, this theater seems really special. And I think at that point I had just gotten into grad school as a playwright, and when I thought about, you know, these places that I had dreams of one day having a show at, South Coast Rep was really high up there, you know, on the list. And Andy Knight, who's the literary manager there, he is goes to see everything, and he went down or he came down to San Diego and saw, you know, all of the UCSD MFA playwrights, our thesis plays and our productions that we do every year, and has just been on he's just been an incredible facilitator, because this play was actually pretty dead, and until Andy kind of emailed, and it was his email that kicked off me picking the play back up and deciding that I wanted to still work on it. And that's how we got here. Yeah.
Where did the idea come from, your play, You Are Cordially Invited to End the World, and why did you have to write this play?
All right, so and this gets a little dark. So in March 2020, March 6th, 2020, my mother-in-law passed away, and my husband and I had just moved down to California, partially to be closer to his parents, who we knew that both of them had different health issues. And then on March 6th, she passed away, and it was kind of like right before lockdown happened with COVID. And so there was this strange feeling of we were, you know, moved into her house, kind of packing everything up, grieving, kind of figuring out what our next step was. School seemed to be canceled for a while, or at least was going to go online. Um, and and everyone was kind of locked up, and we couldn't really see anyone, and so it felt like there was a lack of I don't know, it just felt like the whole world stopped, you know. And so I looked over to my husband and I said, do you feel like your grief has been stolen from you? And he said, no, it feels really right that the world stopped when my mom died. And that comment just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And 6 months later, my father-in-law passed away, and so it just felt like we were stuck in this I don't know, this endless cycle of grief. And we had known so many people who were dealing with deaths that within the last couple, you know, few years, and some of them were, you know, like we talked about how we're having some really honest conversations about how when we talk about death, it always obviously is so sad. And yet those moments are also filled with the funniest moments or the most inappropriate laughter. And the thing that we don't want to ever happen is to feel like we're never allowed to say those people's names anymore because it'll make people sad. And there was something about hearing, especially a friend of ours who had lost her 14-year-old child to cancer. She said, you know, I just feel like no one wants to hear about her anymore. And it just felt so devastating to me. And so kind of all of those things together, I wanted to write a play that felt like it embraced how, while you are, you know, going through the hardest times of our lives, there's also so much life still. Like your life isn't over yet, and how those moments can actually be so joyous and funny, also, and kind of support the idea of like, let's truly try to remember and say the names of people who have left us. And then the big climate change element came when you know, as I was thinking about how could I theatricalize and literalize the idea that one person can be the whole world, that came out as a kind of experiment. And I wrote this one scene where we have this character at a party kind of coming out and saying, I think I'm like the world. um, and I thought no one would understand that, or think they would just think it was really insane and weird. But instead, that kind of became the lynch point and moving the play forward, and that's how it got where it is.
Tell us the story arc and characters, and You Are Cordially Invited to End the World story.
Okay, yeah. So, You're Cordially Invited to the End of the World is a 6-actor show, and it basically follows this trio of a family. There's M, who is our MC, who's kind of leading us through the story. And then we have M's two parents, Greg and Viv. Greg, at the very, very beginning of the play, receives a terminal cancer diagnosis. And so we're kind of telling you right at the end, like, there's probably going to be a death here. Um, and with that, Greg, for the first time in his life, in a way, finds a great purpose. He thinks he has to save the world, and while Greg is kind of building his world bigger and bigger and bigger, his wife Viv, all she wants is to savor their personal time together, and she wants him to be closer and closer and closer. And so those two things kind of create a very clear emotional obstacle for the family. And in the meantime, we have these, as Greg is kind of getting further into treatment, and the play itself is quite fantastical. So we have three other actors who fill out the entire rest of the world. And so they're playing neighbors, support group buddies, they're playing partners, and sometimes even fantasy animal creatures who have gone extinct. As Greg is kind of, as his life is nearing the end, he tries to come to terms with what it means that the world is also dying. And it's a comedy, so that's the kind of it's a almost hard to describe show, but but the biggest thing about it is we think of it as an event. You know, it's going to be one act all the way through, and it will hopefully have people really buzzing and talking as they're leaving the theater.
What is the main themes of your play?
Yeah, I think the biggest themes of the play, I mean, we obviously have this big wrestling with climate change and the conflicting information sometimes that we receive. Even we have just like this long rant about recycling and like whether and what actually happens to, like whether what we do even makes a difference. So sometimes there's like a lot of cynicism and in activation kind of at odds with each other. I think that it seems like, the obvious themes in this play, even though it's a comedy, can be climate change, they can be grief, they can be dying. And yet, I think actually the biggest theme that we've discovered is really this question of what is our significance on Earth? And, it partially that's how can we, can we make significant choices and leave a mark and be, quote, significant? And also, can we keep people significant after they've gone by keeping their memory alive? And so it's really about like how we can activate significance almost.
Do you want to tell us about your actors who are bringing your play alive at the South Coast Repertory?
Yes. Okay, so from PPF, we have two returning actors. We have River Gaio as M, who is who's about to blow up with a big movie this summer. And they are, a non-binary actor who is, who the character is also a drag queen, but they're kind of a really early career performance artist who it's kind of not the typical like drag show you would expect. It's actually kind of someone who is through their art really trying to understand how they fit into the world. And as M's parents, we have two super well-meaning and sometimes stumbling parents. We have Alicia Reiner, who I first encountered from Orange is the New Black and Sideways, and she's just, despite her character on Orange is the New Black, is the biggest sweetheart I have ever met in my life. We actually just went hiking yesterday, and I don't think I've ever had an actor invite me to go hiking on our day off before. And then as Greg, who receives this terminal diagnosis right at the top, we have Joel De La Fuente, who I've known since I was 19 years old, when he was starring in this production of Ivanov with the National Asian American Theater Company in New York. And I was just a lowly, unpaid intern and assistant stage manager, but he has been an incredible mentor to me since I was a teenager. And in the ensemble, we have Sharon Omi, who was in Galilee 34 and is back at South Coast Rep. We have her this time on the big stage. We have Anna La Madrid, who I'm a huge fan of. I saw her in these amazing plays in LA, Crabs in a Bucket, where she played a crab in a bucket. And this play Radical, in which she played the sister of this radicalized young woman. And she's just so funny in the play, and really can pack a punch too. And then finally we have Raphael Goldstein, who I've also known since I was a teenager. We were both at NYU at the same time, and he used to be a bucket list actor for me to work with when I was younger, and now this is my second show where I got to cast him, and he's just a ferocious actor. We have an amazing team, and they're really kind of what I don't want is ever characters that just feel like a blank slate. I really want people who can bring personality and perspective, and this cast is just such a room of weirdos, and they're so good.
To add to that, as a playwright, what's the feeling you get when you actually see your play fully produced in theater?
Yeah, it depends on the production, to be totally honest. I think it's probably no surprise that there are, shows that we all, whenever we're working on something, there are shows that kind of hit us more or less. Sometimes there are shows that kind of get out of our hands, like we weren't able to achieve, what we were hoping that we could achieve. So sometimes it can be excruciating. Right now, this play has just been, when Andy Knight at South Coast asked me to if I had a play that they could consider for PPF, I had rewritten this play and then sent it in. And because I had rewritten it, I sent it into a bunch of places. And so last year it's been getting just so much love. And I got to develop it first at PPF, then at Amphibian Stage in Fort Worth, Texas, then at the O'Neill National Playwrights Conference in Connecticut, and then I took it to Boston Court Theater in Pasadena, then Ashland New Plays Festival in Ashland, Oregon, and this year at Second Stage in New York City. And so I've been on such a long developmental journey with this play in the last year that to just finally get it up on its feet, where people are working on it for more than just a few days, where they can actually start to dig in and find where the play falls apart, actually. Like that's just been such a joy, and I truly couldn't ask for a better team.
Tell us the balancing act you had to do to tell this story from 3 points of views: Greg with the terminal diagnosis, Viv, the wife, and Em, the MC and daughter, and why you wanted to make this play as magical as possible.
The first question is how did the balancing act between the three characters? Yeah. Okay. So I think originally this play was a commission from Act Theater in Seattle, and it was an ask to write a play for the entire acting company, which was a group of originally it was going to be a cast of 14. With a cast of 14, suddenly I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need to, because I usually write up to 6 actors. I write, plays where actors play a bunch of roles often, which they do in this play too. But 14 was suddenly a big number, and I was kind of forcing myself to just continue to write scenes, and so. But I worked a little bit differently on this play, where instead of starting to find a through line, I just kept outputting new characters and new ideas and new potential scenes, and so. I think there was a version of this play that just had like 250 pages that were not even very connected to each other. But just so that I had something, something to show that we could read through and be like, okay, what do we like? What do we not like? Because of that way of working, and knowing that there were going to be, if there's 14 people, it's harder actually to have just one single simple storyline, because I don't want to be relegating really talented actors to like being extras. So suddenly I'm just like, okay, everybody needs to be a little bit more activated. So that's kind of how it started, of what are the different relationships that that I can kind of explore during this period. Um, Also, I think that there was something really beautiful, especially once the play kind of fell away from Act Theater and I got to take full control over it again, of cutting the script, cutting the cast size down and making it 6, which means that we have, so much of the play, we have these motifs of just space and the cosmos, and there was something about having 2 trios that felt, I don't know, just like beautifully balanced. Um, and so that's how it kind of happened. It is still a tricky feat to get some of the 3 actors that play a million characters to get them from one scene to another. Um, but I think that we're figuring that out pretty nicely.
And talk more about the magical part of your plays.
Yes. So the magic. Yeah. I think that in this play specifically, I mean, we use the word magic because we want to. Man, it's so much, the play is partially acknowledging that it is a performance in front of an audience, and this is a person's it's not an objective view. It is shaped by our MC, and with being shaped by an MC comes a kind of freedom to not just explore what happens in the play, but how it feels. And that's something that I've always been really interested in theater is again, it's not just a plot point to plot point thing. I want the audience to sit and not just sit back and watch. I want them to sit forward and kind of experience all of these things along with the characters, which means that we have to be a little creative and into showing them how a moment might feel. It's just not easier, but there's something about this like magical playfulness that invites the audience in, and they get to really experience the feelings firsthand, which I think is one of the reasons why I think we talk about this play as an event. It's we're constantly inviting the audience in both small and some very big ways.
As a person with incurable disease myself, I have cystic fibrosis. I really appreciate you treating Greg as a normal 3D person, being a very passionate person about life and the earth at the end. Why was it important to you to show Greg as a person full of life, even though he is on borrowed time?
Yeah, I've talked to so many people who have come up to me after readings and saying, I also am dealing with I also received a terminal diagnosis earlier this year, or I'm a survivor. And I think that I think that we do such a disservice to people when their identity becomes this, this illness, this disease, whatever people are dealing with. I think we do them a huge disservice by taking away the rest of the things that make them them. And something that something that I've always been really interested in is, when we go to a funeral and it feels like sometimes we talk about, we say like, he was a father, he was a son, he was a brother, and those are all really great things, but they're all in relation to other people. And in a way, it feels like we stop thinking about all of those people that we loved as independent human beings on their own and all the things that made them unique. Instead, we start to just connect into their relationships to other people. And that's something that I don't know, has always seemed kind of like strange to me, but curious. And I also understand it because it's us that are left on the other side. But I really wanted to write a play that I don't know, that kind of acknowledged that we're not defined by those things, and we can have these. It's not over yet. His life is not over until it's over, and in a way, even just story wise, it's also just like we watch this play, and the person that's the most alive in the play is the one who is dying, and what that's going to mean when he's gone, that has huge consequences for those characters that are going to be left behind, and that feels really realistic and human to me.
What do you want the audience to get out of your play?
Yes, I want audiences to I don't know, I want them to, of course, remember the people that are important to them. I want them to feel significant. I want them to pay a little bit more attention on about what's happening to the world around us. I want people to also feel really, we have a character in this play that's non-binary, and we have characters that misgender them, and it's never those people are not villains in our play. They are making a mistake, and they are stumbling, and they're trying their best. And what I'm so proud of in the play is that there's no antagonist. Everyone's a good person and trying their best, and it's just an unfortunate situation, and it's a really difficult situation. And so I really want people to come and know that they're not going to be judged. We're just kind of inviting everyone in to experience. You're going to relate to somebody in the play. I mean, that just by nature of it being kind of having every kind of human. So I really hope people walk away feeling like, oh, that was a play that really spoke to me. I really felt a connection to XYZ character. I laughed so much that my stomach hurt, and I can't believe that I'm leaving with a sense of, ah, yes, the world is vast and beautiful.
And the most important question, why must viewers in the theater community attend the production of You Are Cordially Invited to the End of the World?
This play is truly nothing like you've ever seen before. A part of the reason why it's been getting so much love, I was just in New York actually because it was a finalist for a big playwriting prize in the city. I was there just like a week and a half ago. I've never had a play get this much love, and I think it's because it feels extremely unique, and a huge part of that is just how it came about. It's so personal, though not autobiographical, but it also deals with giant themes, but it's also really funny, and I think that it kind of gets to the bottom of like what we love about theater, which is that you never know what's gonna come next, but it also packs a hell of a punch. And the Yeah, I truly think the director Zai and I, we've been developing this play now all over the country pretty much, because we were together for a lot of those workshops last year, and there I don't think I've ever gone into a rehearsal process with such a united front with a director of like, oh well, we are exactly on the same page. We have a lot of work to do, but it's gonna really be worth it. And the design is, I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. It's just gonna be a really, really cool show.
Adding on that, as you mentioned magic, and I truly thought your play was a magical play. What magic do you want the viewers to take home from your play?
I think the biggest magic trick I think we talk about is that you can keep people alive in some way forever. Um, and that I think you are significant. It sounds so cheesy when I just say the things like that, but it's true. I think people will leave hopefully just feeling a little bit of a electricity in their blood.
Your play is part of the South Coast Repertory Pacific Playwrights Festival this year. What are you looking for during the weekend of the Playwrights Festival?
Oh boy, yeah. So I will be back for the weekend. I'm going to be opening a show in Chicago concurrently. So I'm going to be leaving after like the first or second preview to come down and check everything out. I'm, I'm just excited I'm excited for all of the play readings. I just there's such a there's such a summer camp feel to PPF sometimes where it feels like theater professionals from all over the country are coming in, and audiences alike, and everyone is I don't know, just excited to see what's on the precipice of new theater. I can't even speak to any of the plays because I don't know any of I haven't read any of them, so I think but what's so exciting about PPF is that it has such an array of kinds of plays too, that there's usually something for everybody. Yeah, and I'm really excited this time to not have I mean, it'll still be stressful to have my show going up. It'll be the closing weekend for us. But last year I was in the slot in the Nicholas where we had we had 4 readings, which meant that the stress never quite left me as we were trying to, shape the play more and more and more every time. So I never felt like I quite got to rest. At least this time my writing will have been long over, so I can actually relax and enjoy the weekend.
Well, to add on that, how is playwright festivals like this and the other ones that your play went through? How is that helpful forming the final play that you want to present?
Yeah, so what's interesting about these playwriting festivals and conferences and all is that I think maybe in the olden days, theater plays maybe had a lot more time in rehearsal. And actually South Coast is quite generous with their time for new plays, so they give us an extra week. But if I'm doing a show at some of the other theaters, like when I was just down at the Old Globe doing this play, Empty Ride, we have 3 weeks and then we have tech. And 3 weeks is, the first week we usually do some table work. That's when a lot of script changes happen. Second week is a lot of staging. And then it's like then you really only have kind of 1 week of real rehearsal where everyone's like off book and able to be in scenes with each other. And that just is such a short period of time before we start just adding tech elements to it. And I think what's been and of course in all of that you also start to realize like, oh, this scene isn't working anymore. And I would, if I had had an extra week, then I would have noticed. And of course we're still in this play too. We're still making changes we're currently in our third week, I believe, or maybe our fourth week, our last week before tech. And we are still also making changes, but we came into this rehearsal process with a script that's really, really solid because we got to develop it and workshop it so many times with so many different people. And half of the actors, we have Ralph Goldstein and River from PPF. We have Joel De La Fuente from the O'Neill. He was in that workshop. So half of the cast is also they're coming in pretty familiar with the show and how we work and what the tone of the play is. And the other three are bringing a fresh new life and energy into the play. And so it just starts us off a little bit ahead of the game, which is so helpful.
I know professionals around the country come to the Playwrights Festival. Why is it important for the local community to attend and see all these amazing plays?
I mean, the fact that there's one of the biggest new play festivals in the country happening in your backyard is pretty exciting. um, and it's true, people really do fly in from all over. And I think it's one of them. It's one of the few ones that people actually still do that for. It's actually getting less and less that people kind of fly in to watch a series of plays. But PPF is kind of like the premier West Coast, certainly. But when I think about the festivals where people are still flying in, it's kind of PPF is the biggest one. And I think it's because one. The plays are really great. We also have access to all of those amazing LA actors, and you get to see people who you might recognize from various things who are just like playing. I mean, last year I remember one of the plays had a cast of like 25 people or something like that, and a couple of the actresses I was like, oh my gosh, I know her from this random TV show. And it's just really kind of amazing to see actors who are at the top of their game meet playwrights who are at the top of their game and just do all of this in Costa Mesa and in the beautiful sunshine. Yeah, it's just a really, really fun time, so people should come by.
What would you tell other playwrights, actor, directors, and other type of artists why they should get involved with South Coast Repertory? Why are they such a unique theater?
Yeah, so I've worked at quite a few theaters, both as an actor and as a playwright now, or at National Asian American Theater Company as an unpaid intern. But I think what makes South Coast really different, at least in the theaters I've been encountering in the last few years, it's a really warm group there. I feel like I walk in. I walk into the theater, we have Jack at the front desk, and he's just ready to tell me about how he baked some new challah. And I'm wandering the halls, and I see the associate AD Kim, and she comes out and gives me a hug, and is like, "How's everything going?" I just think that there's a really hands-on approach that feels like the kind of it feels like the neighborhood theater, even though it's one of the most renowned premier theaters in the country. It really does also feel like your neighborhood theater where everybody is just excited to be there. They love theater, they love what they're doing, they love serving the community. And I, I don't know, there's something about this theater that makes me feel so welcome and free to fail, which means that we get to get all of our bad ideas out of the way early, and then we can actually get to the good ideas that we want to show audiences. So
And I always ask this questions, as you know, the tickets don't actually cover the cost of a play production. So why are theaters like the South Coast Repertory so important and needs the community's help and support in many ways?
yeah, South Coast Rep. I don't know if people realize how many. It's a South Coast Rep is a theater where there's like a ton of plays that started. I wish I had the list in front of me, but there's like a huge amount of really really famous plays that started at South Coast Rep. So not only am I just happy to be there, but I'm joining a history of just like the greats, people that have gotten to world premiere giant plays that went on to have huge lives, or gone to Broadway. Um, and so I think when you're supporting a place like South Coast Rep, you're supporting the industry as a whole, because some of those shows, I mean, if South Coast Rep hadn't commissioned Lauren Yee, I'm going to talk about Cambodian rock band again, hadn't commissioned Lauren Yee to write Cambodian rock band, I mean, I don't know if that play, I don't know if she would have ever taken that leap and into writing that play. You just don't know. And I think that's kind of the most wonderful thing is you're not just supporting like the day-to-day of an organization, you're supporting the future of an entire industry. And it allows them to continue to make bold choices rather than giving audiences what people think audiences want. And the truth is audiences don't always know exactly what they want in the moment. You don't know it until it's in front of you and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know I needed this play in my life. And I think it's only through supporting theaters like that that you can actually continue to have those experiences. Hi, I'm Keiko Green. I wrote You Are Cordially Invited to the End of the World. You absolutely must come see this play because it is something, it's like nothing you've ever seen before. It's going to be full of laughter, possibly tears, but it will entertain you all the way through, and I think will ultimately leave you buzzing and talking about all of the ways in which the world and you and everyone you love is significant and connected. See you at the theater.
I wrote this play. Part of the reason why I wrote this play, not just this play, but all the plays I'll write, is that I like Hawaii. I like the world I get to build with my plays. I like the characters that I get to choose. I like to think about what they're wearing and what they do and what they say and what their characterizations are. It's a little dollhouse that I get to have, and it's a story that I get to tell. And the story that I would tell is the story where I imagine I'm sitting in the audience watching the play and I'm laughing my ass off, or I'm crying, or it's doing the things that would scratch my itch when I go to see theater. And so there's nobody that needs to see this play There's nobody I'm begging to see this play because I know like on opening night I will be in the perfect seat, dead center, and I'm gonna watch the hell out of this thing, and it's gonna be my favorite play. And if people want to come and be a part of watching my favorite thing, um, that'd be awesome because then we could have a shared favorite experience together, and talk about it after. Um, so my family will be there, but they need to see the play only because like I want to talk to them about it. And the friends that I'm inviting, I want them to see the play because I want to talk to them about it. And my professors, this play is a love letter to them because I couldn't have done this without um, their knowledge and expertise and their craft that they were able to give me. And so if those people show up, then it would be a perfect, joyful experience for me. Whoever else shows up, that's on you. Come or don't come. Because we don't need Hawaiians don't need this. We have our own place, our own land, our own stories, our own ideas and opinions and thoughts, and we live full lives that has nothing to do with anybody else. Um, so yeah, come or don't come. My name is Noah Gardner. I am the writer of this play, The Staircase, and if you want to learn more, please listen to this conversation.
So my first question is, when did you hear about South Coast Repertory, and why did you want to work with this town with the team at SCR?
Okay, so the thing that I didn't get in my grad school experience is they don't give you when you graduate, you don't get a roadmap of like, okay, go and talk to artistic directors, talk to literary managers, find an agent. Like it's about like it's about relationships ultimately. And how South Coast Rep came into my life because I did not seek them out. I did not know about South Coast Rep at all. And so I got an email out of the blue from Andy Knight, the literary manager, um, asking if he could Zoom with me because for a commission opportunity. That's what it wrote. That's what he wrote. And then we did Zoom, and I said, "Yeah, who is South Coast Rep? Like, who are you? And what's a literary manager? And what's your job? You know?" And basically, Andy was said like he as a literary manager, part of his job is to like go and source plays from wherever. And I happened when I graduated from USC, I joined a writers group called IAMA, Emerging Writers Group Under 30 or something. IAMA Under 30. And I think that was started by, I could be wrong, but same, I should go check this. But a woman named Stephanie Black at IAMA, and there's this other person named Max Friedlich. Max Friedlich is the one that wrote Job that was just on Broadway. Um, and he brought me in. Like he had read my plays um, through somebody else, and so he called me and said, "Oh, join this writers group," and I did. And then somebody in that writers group, um, his name is Nicholas Pillapil. Nicholas works at South Coast Rep. Put my plays in front of Andy. Andy read my plays, called me. Then we zoomed, and then I took this commission. But what they did was they flew me out to see the festival because I didn't know what the festival was. And when I went to the festival, I saw like how many people were there, and like people from all over the country, from all these kind of big theaters. Um, Theaters I knew the names of, like Lincoln Center or like Alliance, like bigger names, Woolly Mammoth, like those are the theaters I knew, um, just from conversations with people. And so on the flight back, I thought, okay, like if I'm gonna get a reading with all these people, I'm gonna like take a big swing. And and this is over the pandemic era, right? So I kind of was thinking about pivoting to something else. I wanted to maybe pivot out of playwriting and go into something more, um, just something else, something more significant, something with maybe like more job security or something that could scratch a different sort of itch that writing wasn't, perhaps. And that was like the cultural side of my journey. I wanted to explore Hawaiian language more and Hawaiian studies a little bit more. So I was actually re-enrolled at the University of Hawaii as an undergraduate again, and taking these classes because all these classes were on Zoom. So during that time, so it was really easy to start doing that. Anyways, so he called me for this commission, and then the development developed a script just through like Zoom feedback sessions. Me and Andy, or me, Andy, and Kim at South Coast Rep. And then the play got to a very strong place through their help and their development. And then they paired me up with a director that I felt like understood the piece as I was writing it, which is GT Upchurch, who's directing the piece, because she saw a version of the play that was bad, but she talked about it as if it was good. And so it made me see that she could see past the what I wrote and where I wanted it to go. And so, boom, I thought, okay. So all of these pieces came into play, and then finally, when we had the reading, we didn't audition any actors. That South Coast Rep casted the play, um, but Joanne found this woman. Her name is Kati Kuroda. She found Leilani Chan and Ova Salpang, um, who run theater productions in LA. They're Hawaii connected. They're local people. And then they found Ben Kane, who's in this production, who plays the father. And just those people with GT and with the script and how strong it was at that time, we had a successful reading because of that. And I felt like at least the reading, people saw at least 70% of the intention. Like the play was at the 70-yard line. And I think that's why the theater, South Coast Rep, and David Ivers thought, okay, I can trust that this script will, by the time we get to production, it could be really strong. And so that's where we've ended up after this 2-year collaboration.
Where did the idea come from for the play The Staircase, and why did you have to write the play?
The idea originally, and this is what's just true, so I can only say what's true, but I, on the plane ride back from the festival, the first time they flew me out, I started to ideate on the plane about like what is the image that's coming to me? Because usually, like when I try to start a play, I try to start with an image, and I try to start from a place where, like, if that moment were to happen, I would there would be a catch in my throat. I would be emotional about it for whatever reason. I don't know. And it's hard to put words on it when you first like conceive of it, but when you feel the catch, then I try to investigate it. And so when I was an undergrad, I saw this play, this Tennessee Williams play called I Can't Imagine Tomorrow, and it's a one act. And my friend directed it in a black box on campus at LMU. And it was a very simple play, and it was very intriguing. The language was very intriguing. The characters were very intriguing. The world was interesting and weird. And but nothing happens in that play. Like, and nothing happens in most plays, but like it's like two characters that are just chatting. One has a stutter. He has a hard time. So, but you can tell that he's in love with this woman, and this woman you can tell she's kind of sickly or something. Something's going on with her, and the whole play is on this night. She doesn't want this person here. She wants to go to bed. She wants to go upstairs and turn off the light and go to bed. And so she's the whole play, she's trying to push this guy out the door. And this guy is like, no, 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 I'll stay and I'll make you a sandwich. Or no, I'll stay and we'll play cards. But finally, at the end of the play, she walks up the staircase, this little step. There's like a 3, 4 step thing in this black box. And she makes it to the landing and she turns off the lamp. And that's how the play ends. And only when I realized, like, way later on, maybe in my room or something, that I thought, oh, she died in the metaphor of the play or whatever. You know how Tennessee Williams writes, like it's just like in this weird sort of liminal space sometimes. And so I had this image of a mother and son, an older woman and a son, like middle-aged, and they're on the couch and they're playing cards or whatever, and it's like he wants her to go upstairs and go to bed. And, you know, in classic playwriting construction, the mom doesn't want to go up for whatever reason, doesn't want to fulfill the son's want. She has her own want, which is, I want to stay down here and sleep on the couch. And so the play kind of starts, I started the play there, that we would watch these two battle over whatever, but finally at the end, she would walk up the staircase and he would be screaming after her to come back down or something like that. Um, and then I thought of like a father character, or like maybe the father is the thing that they're battling over. And so I thought I had this image of if the mom goes up the stairs and dad comes down the stairs. So that's the original conceit of the play, and then it has evolved from there. But why I must tell this story, you know, that came later on. Um, and it didn't come in the conceit of like I want to tell this about Hawaii, or this is what I want, this is what I have to say, blah blah blah. It really has come in the development of, because a lot of writing is subconscious. So I construct the play and make it a good story and make it have all the writerly playwriting things that you want in a play. And then when you get to the end of it, then you can go back and analyze why some things are in there, why some things are not. Because a lot of it comes from like, hmm, I I like this scene. Nobody else likes this scene, but I like this scene. So I'm gonna fight for this scene and figure out why I can't let it go. So when you start doing that analysis on it, then I can kind of understand the story I'm telling and the why I'm telling it. Um, that moves beyond the basic of mom son playing cards, chatting. That there may be a political thing that I'm trying to put on the play, or there may be, yeah, just a more consequential aspect to this story that I'm trying to convey to the audience, which I could try and say if you'd like me to.
Well, that was going to be my next question is tell us
Mm,
as much as story arc you want to tell
hmm
us and a
hmm
little more about the characters and we'll talk more about the theme, but more right now talk about the story arc and the characters right now.
Yeah, it has something to do. I mean, the cultural thing that is in the play that is cool is that I was trying to explore. One of them was like the storytelling aspect of how Hawaiian people um, like their relationships to stories, and how that function. Like we're a storytelling people, and um, these are the stories that I wanted to showcase, basically, because there is like a mythology that's in the play, and it's the mythology is the story of Hiaka, which is in conjunction. Like Hiaka is the sister of Pele, and a lot of people know Pele. They understand, like they know volcano goddess. That's as much as they know. But like, here's an opportunity to showcase like a part of the story that people would never have heard before, essentially. Because I feel like people only get to touch Hawaii in a certain way. They are really kept at an arm's distance when they come, and that's purposeful because we don't want tourists uh, in the we want to keep them sort of off to the side. So that's why they stay in Waikiki, or stay at the hotels. Very White Lotus, like keep it curated over there because white people can do a lot of damage to indigenous people, and so that separation is healthy for us. And Hawaii is a very unique place because it is part of the United States, technically. But Hawaiians are not Americans, and we don't feel any kinship in that way to America. And I say that because Hawaii is a unique place because when people come to Hawaii, white people, it's one of the few places in America that white people can feel otherized. They're named when they come. Haole, tourist. Usually people are used to doing the naming. Americans are used to naming, putting their names on things. And when they come here, they're named and they're made to feel other. Not in a malicious way, but you're other. You're just different, because everyone else is brown and you're white. And so there is this uncomfortability just from the start, where like it's a strange power dynamic because America has a lot of power of Hawaii, but Hawaiians have a, an even stronger power, which is um, the land in which we reside. We've been on for millennia, and we have, uh, I don't want to say a claim to it, but in our genealogy, we can walk it back all the way to the beginning of time, where you can see that the land uh, is an actual ancestor, an actual family member. So our relationship, and maybe all indigenous people or most indigenous people have a unique relationship to land that Western people do not. But it's because it's crafted in our creation stories. And so one story that you'll see in the play is Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve is funny because God gives man dominion over the land. You name the animals. You do whatever you want with this is yours. In our creation, in Hawaiian creation story, the land was born first, and we are the younger sibling to land. And so that there is now a sibling relationship between us and land. That if we don't take care of our sibling, he won't take care of us. We need to feed him, water him, and then they can feed us and water us. So there's this beautiful thing just in the story. And, I want people to understand like Hawaiians have a very unique perspective on the world, and that informs character. So that will inform the characters that you'll see, and that informs the world building that would come from these characters building this world. So it's a Hawaiian and indigenous approach to world building and character development that you may not see in other Western plays these days.
What would you say are the main themes of the staircase?
One big one that we've discovered is shame. Like you'll hear that word come up a couple times in the play, and then the other word was stuck, being sort of um, unable to make a decision. Because like a big theme, without giving too much away, it's like stay or go, basically. So you'll see that in the play, and there's one more, I think. Shame, shame, stay or go, and oh, caretaking. It's a huge plot point. It's the whole. That's the entirety of the play. Like taking care of elders, um, and just from an indigenous perspective, a Hawaiian perspective, like elders have such a high reverence in our society because they have access to a world that is slipping away, like an older version of Hawaii or an older perspective of the world that when they pass, we won't have access to anymore. And Hawaiian is in before the printing press, like we were an oral language, and so we had to really listen to older folks really intently because we didn't have paper to archive it, so we had to like keep it in the brain as much as possible. And so if you look at what hula is, 90% of people know what hula is, like they've seen it, but they only know it from like hotel and touristy stuff. But hula has is a religious uh, and spiritual um, thing, and it's not that like part of it is entertainment to be sure, but it's the way I've been taught is that it's a mnemonic device wherein these someone has information, they're able to demonstrate this information through body and through voice. And then if you're able to learn this chant, this text, and put it in your body in a physical way, then you won't lose that information. It's like the ABCs, Why do we learn the ABCs through song? It's just to help us remember the ABCs. So if you look at it through that lens, that's what's cool about it, is that this passing of information is in the body and it's in voice. Um, so storytelling is an aspect that comes up as a theme in the staircase as well.
Tell us about the actors that are bringing your play, The Staircase, alive at South Coast Repertory Theater.
Yeah, this is really a good question. So yeah, thank you for this question so I could talk about these people because well, one to start with is Kati Kuroda who did pass away, and when I tell you that we gave this woman like hardly a note when we workshopped this play because she read this piece and she just understood it. Um, and Kati Kuroda, I didn't know her for a long time, but she is somebody that has lived and worked in Hawaii for as a theater as an actress for decades and has been in a ton of productions in Hawaii, but also has lived in New York, I think, for a decade or two, and was an actress in New York. Um, in the 80s, and she's Asian, Asian American woman. So I can only imagine how tough it was for her um, to work at that time. But she did work, and she worked a ton. And so she was like this grand dame of Hawaiian theater that I didn't get to know too well. But I owe her a lot of a debt because her being on the play helped it deepen tremendously. So when she passed, there's this other woman that I had known that I met through the Bay Area Foundation, that she was in a reading of mine. Um, and it was sort of serendipitous. She came across one of my plays, and so got to be in the reading, and then we got to chatting, and realizing like, oh, she could be in the staircase, like if it got produced too, So keeping her um in my brain about the thing about Hawaiian plays is like Hawaiian actors are few and far in between. So when you find one, it's it's exciting to find one that would fit, in a role that you wrote. So you'll see Auntie Ehu Kane in this play, um, and she holds the play in this really strong way, profound way. And then Will Kahele is the son, and from what I understand about um, Will has been acting in Hawaii on stage for a long time as well, so very comfortable being on a stage. Um, I don't know that Will has been on a stage um, of this size, um, or may yeah, of this size, and maybe like not in Hawaii, maybe like a mainland stage. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that one. Um, but he he is perfect for this role as well. It's kind of weird. And then just from his story and stuff, and then even Nara, who plays Sweetheart, I called her on the phone. I got my friend who knew her when I was soliciting, like, who should play these characters. My friend texted me and said, "Oh, you should look up Nara Cardenas. She lived in Hawaii and she worked. She was an actress in Hawaii too. Studied at Yale for acting, but is now living in Utah. So she's Hawaiian, but can't get back home right now to Hawaii, just because of life, life stuff. And the sweetheart character experiences the same thing in the play. Wants to be home in Hawaii, but gets pulled back um, to different like because of life stuff. Um, and then Ben Kane was on the original workshop, and he was just the strongest actor. And Father is the hardest person to write for me in the play. So I've been trying different versions of Father, and Ben is able to take on different versions of Father and reflect back to me what is working, what's not working, basically. So all four of those people, like, it's well cast. It's well cast for sure. Yeah.
What do you want the audience to get out of the Staircase production?
Honestly, the thing that I don't know. The thing I want, I think right now, is if I show you these characters who to me are very real and indicative of people that I know in Hawaii. They have the sort of embody a lot of the attitudes of Hawaiian people. Um, Not everything, but a lot of like some of it. And I would hope that when people come and see the play, and if they like the play and they like the characters and they like the world, that they would speak to us and interact with us in a different way than people do. Um, because I know like a lot of characters like like Mother in this play and like Auntie Ehu, the actress that plays Mother. I know a lot of women like her. And it would make me feel good for people to see someone like her when they go and meet someone like her in the wild, an older Hawaiian woman, and treat her with a ton of respect. Because this woman, who you'll see on stage, just because of her sheer humanity, demands your respect in that way. And to me, the thing that to me, that would be the top-notch thing is that a lot of theater goers, they go to see theater to have a cathartic experience. That you get to, like, theater gives you something that film can do, but it does it in its own way. TV can sometimes do, especially in the golden era of TV. Like, it was scratching a lot of people's itches on that respect. And I'm just talking about the cathartic experience. There's something cathartic about going into a theater, walking in one way, watching a play, and leaving the building a completely different person. And I know that a lot of people have been bitten by that bug before, and it's been through, ask somebody and they'll tell you the play that activated them for the first time. And there's probably somebody that will come to this play, and maybe a younger person who hasn't had that experience yet, hasn't had the experience of being activated by theater. Um, And wouldn't it be cool if their first time having that experience was with Hawaiian people, was with this Hawaiian story? That's one. Because for me, my first activation was probably like The Glass Menagerie, was probably like um, Death of a Salesman, A Raisin in the Sun, August Wilson, like these kind of like old school plays. I think about them like old school plays. Because you kind of just don't see that anymore. I don't know what that is necessarily, but it's like this. I don't know how to explain it. But when I went to see that kind of theater, it gave me something, or like doubt, this moment where like this priest faces off with this nun and they get to have this epic sort of fight and stuff. That to me was like that was my activation. So like, wouldn't it be cool if like that activation for somebody was like Hawaiian plays? So those are the two things that I think I hope people walk away from with the play.
I do ask this usually later on, but I think it's a perfect question. Tell us why more voices of the community must be heard and told in the theater world.
It's a good question. If I can answer it, I think there is a danger to well, diversity of voices and diversity in general gives you diversity of thought, and diversity of thought helps you approach life. It just gives you more tools in your toolbox. If you come from a homogeneous culture or homogeneous upbringing, your toolbox is very limited on how you can approach life. So that's why art is so dangerous. It's because sometimes art can give people what they don't get in their childhood or in their upbringing. And so that is the importance of like DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion in something like art and in something like theater. That's one. And then on the Hawaiian side, like why should we have more Hawaiian voices or more Hawaiian plays? It's because then it'll give us more freedom to fail. Because right now it doesn't feel like um, what I can put out can be bad. It has to kind of be good because if it's good, then people can take it seriously and assess it for its seriousness and then discuss the things that are in that play with a bit of seriousness. But if you see a bad play that maybe has good stuff in it, but it's a bad play, you can't talk about a bad play too much. It's very difficult. So the first step is like write a good play, and then you might have the chance to talk about other things that are in the play. But if you have more people in it, more Hawaiian folks in it, then there's more freedom to fail and be more experimental. Because, and this is an example I always bring up, but like in the Western canon, it's so saturated that you could write anything and nobody cares. That's why there's American Pie 9. That's why there's Fast and Furious 14 and Avengers or MCU or whatever. It's like we can have fun now and make whatever, and people won't care. But in these smaller communities where they're starting to just put out work or significant work, it's critiqued very, very harshly, especially from the community, because they want to safeguard what is being said about them and how they're being represented to people. Um, so that's a lot to consider because if I want to construct a character, um, and maybe be more experimental and be more fun, I need to understand that that representation won't, or that kind of character won't damage, you know, like unpurposefully damage Hawaiian folks and their standing in the world. Because in my view, our standing is pretty high. And a lot of people, they don't even know where we exist. And I'm using this opportunity to showcase people, Hawaiian folks existing, and I'll be damned if the audience doesn't react off of that animation, that full lived body experience. So then I won't feel gaslit of like, hey, I'm screaming over here. Doesn't anyone notice me? You know, this play is not a scream, but it is uh there is a statement being made, and I want people to hear it and have a back and forth with me about it, you know.
What magic, or at least I consider theater magic, what magic do you want the viewers to take home from them watching your play, The Staircase?
I mean, like the take home part is so important because there are a lot of plays that you'll see, and when the show ends, you get in your car and you think about what you're going to eat for dinner. And then there are plays and you get in your car and you're still thinking about the play. And you drive an hour back home to wherever, right? And you're thinking about the play the whole time. And then you go to bed and you wake up and you call your friend and you say, you should go see this thing because I want to talk to you about it because I don't know, I'm thinking about it and I need someone to talk to you about it because I don't know how to land on it. Or, you know, there's something sticky about the play. And so the walk away or the take home is that I want there to be that stickiness on people that maybe maybe there's parts of the play they couldn't access, and maybe they want to come back and see it again so that they can sort of keep an ear out for that. Or maybe there's parts of the play where they immediately could access and they can start applying that to their own lives. But to me, the magic of theater is that you can attach yourself to a character in a play, suspend reality, immerse in this world, attach yourself to this character, and if this character has a cathartic emotional experience on stage and in their life story in the play, then that will give you permission to also have that cathartic, joyful, whatever experience in your own life, you know, because in theater, it's one of the places where you can have a conversation that you couldn't necessarily have in real life because those conversations are harder and more awkward and more vulnerable than we like to be in our everyday lives. But in theater, it's a safer space to have a harder conversation with the people that you want to have conversations with. Like, like this is a story about a mother and a son, there are things mothers and sons can't say to each other in real life. There are things fathers and sons can't say to each other in real life, just because it's just too too emotionally too much, that we go and talk to therapists about, but don't have with the people that we should be talking to. But in this play, like they have to talk to each other, and they have to talk to each other about the thing, you know? Yeah.
Most important question, why must the viewers attend the production of The Staircase?
Honestly, you don't. Because I wrote this play. Part of the reason why I wrote this play, not just this play, but all the plays I'll write, is that I like Hawaii. I like the world I get to build with my plays. I like the characters that I get to choose. I like to think about what they're wearing and what they do and what they say and what their characterizations are. It's a little dollhouse that I get to have. And it's a story that I get to tell and the story that I would tell is the story where I imagine I'm sitting in the audience watching the play and I'm laughing my ass off, or I'm crying, or it's doing the things that would scratch my itch when I go to see theater. And so there's nobody that needs to see this play. There's nobody I'm begging to see this play, because I know, like, on opening night I will be in the perfect seat, dead center, and I'm gonna watch the hell out of this thing, and it's gonna be my favorite play. And if people want to come and be a part of watching my favorite thing, um, that'd be awesome, because then we could have a shared favorite experience together, and talk about it after. So my family will be there, but they need to see the play only because, like, I want to talk to them about it. And the friends that I'm inviting, I want them to see the play because I want to talk to them about it. And my professors, this play is a love letter to them, because I couldn't have done this without their knowledge and expertise and their craft that they were able to give me. And so if those people show up, then it would be a perfect, joyful experience for me. Whoever else shows up, that's on you. Come or don't come. Because we don't need Hawaiians don't need this. We have our own place, our own land, our own stories, our own ideas and opinions and thoughts, and we live full lives that has nothing to do with anybody else. So yeah, come or don't come.
Your play is part of the South Coast Repertory Pacific Playwright Festival this year.
Hmm.
What are you looking forward to see and watch during this festival?
I love to, South Coast Rep. I have to say, they probably put on the best festival for playwriting. And part of it is because, and I told this to David Ivers, the artistic director, because I had this realization at the last festival. Because at the last festival, I got to just be a spectator again. And it's the perfect format for writers because they cast the plays so well for these readings. And we're so close to LA, and like all these actors, this huge pool of actors that can just come in and just do the thing. Um, and, so the actors are great. The directors that they bring in are awesome, right? Like, they're taking care of all the other aspects so that the writer, when they watch the piece back, they can't blame it of, oh, they didn't get it, or whatever, on the acting, or no, they didn't get this because of the direction. They have to confront themselves and say, no, it's the writing. The reason why it's not working is because of the writing. And sometimes there's development opportunities where those other elements muddy the waters, because maybe the actors aren't right, or maybe you and the director don't have that relationship, and so you aren't able to shape the piece the way you'd like. So sometimes I go back to my room and think, like, is it a bad play? Did they not get it? But in this festival, because South Coast Rep takes care of so much, the writers can strengthen their writing because they can see where in the script there are problems and address them. And the problems are so bright, at least when I'm watching them. The problems in a script is so bright, it's exciting to feel like, oh, once they nail that part, this play will really, you can start imagining it more and more and more on American stages. And you'll see a lot of these plays that come out of this festival on American stages, 2, 3, 4 years time. So that's what's exciting about it too. Is you kind of get like first access to that.
There's always a playwrights panel. Did you enjoy that? And how do you what did you get out that from the other playwrights who were there on the panel?
Really enjoyed that because one is like I never get to talk shop with writers as much as I'd like to, especially living in Hawaii. So when I get to be around other playwrights, I love to talk craft with them. And then the questions in the playwrights panel and the way it was moderated, like H. Adam Harris, I think, is the one that moderates the panels, and the questions are super thoughtful, and he understands like how to guide an audience to ask like thoughtful questions. Um, and the audience that comes to South Coast Rep, um, outside of like the theater people that come, um, these people are theater people, and they've been around the block and they've seen a ton of plays and have been engaging with a lot of plays, not just classics and older plays, but modern plays as well. And so they also know how to ask questions, how to ask thoughtful questions. So the conversations on the playwrights panel ends up being like really thought provoking and full, yeah, thoughtful.
Why must the SoCal community, especially people who love theater, attend this year's Pacific Playwrights Festival at South Coast Repertory?
I think because it's just a nice, like the experience is so lovely. Like the way that they stack the day, the way that they just the way that it's organized. It helps you. Um, Sometimes plays, going to see plays, they can be a slog, you know. They're not always the funnest thing, especially new play development. It's always hit or miss sometimes. But at least like the caliber of writing that's going to come out of this festival is going to be quite high. So at least you'll have the opportunity to see like really well written plays, new plays. And so that's one, like the well written part of it all. But then like new plays, like it's fun to catch a play early and championing it, as it continues to find life on other stages out in the world. But it's cool to like be the first person to kind of um, yeah, it's like screeners at like Sundance or something where you got to see that Oscar winning thing before it was ever considered to be Oscar worthy.
As you mentioned, you've had a great experience with South Coast Repertory Theater. What would you tell other playwrights, actors, directors, why they should get involved with South Coast Repertory Theater?
One, I think like the support, you know, there are certain type of organizations where if a problem occurs, they make you feel badly about it, or they like the blame game happens, and it's about there's more effort on like identifying the blame and identifying like where it went wrong, and then there's the others like, or you could like put all that effort into like solving problems, and especially like trying to produce plays and theater and stuff, like problems abound, problems will occur, and South Coast Rep understands how to um navigate those like pitfalls because they've been around the block, for a number of years, so they know what to avoid and what not to do. And then when things do happen, because they always do happen, they address it, and they address it in this way that's like, no problem, sure, don't worry about it. And this they have to know that like to be able to de-stress, from artist perspective and not carry somebody else's tension, it helps free up the writer to write without anxiety. And if you're able to write without anxiety, you're gonna get cool things. Like for instance, like an example from last year, somebody wrote like a 19-person play. South Coast Rep casted that play, like, and showcased that play in the festival last year. Which is funny to write for me to hear because in grad school or just like the culture of writing playwriting, it's like we try to write like a 4-person or a 6-person play, so that's like less of an issue for the theater to produce it. But imagine like a 19-person play, what a huge ask that writer made of South Coast Rep. And South Coast Rep, you know, from an outsider's perspective, made it look seamless, made it look flawless. And so I'm just like truly just like so impressed and with South Coast Rep and on how they produce plays and the thoughtfulness that goes into curation and stuff and especially just in the investment of the writer that they're investing in me. They like me. They like my writing for sure, but they also like me and I like them. And that is as important as anything else because you can sense tenseness in a piece because of the personal relationships of all the goings on that have contributed to getting the piece on stage. You can feel that. And you can also feel the other side of it, where the ease of it all. Because this should be easy. Like in an ideal world, it's easy and it's beautiful. That's the best kind of art, I would say.
And as you know, paying ticket sales don't pay for a full production. So this is why I always ask these questions about, why people should donate to theaters like South Coast. So why are theaters like South Coast Repertory so important and needs the community help and support in all the ways they can do it?
There is this quote, but I can't remember it like precisely or who said it. But basically it's like somebody said like he either said like art or theater are the dreams of a society. And it's like you don't want to turn off that dreaming part of your brain. And you know, it sort of feels like almost like a national security issue where it's like you need to have your citizens, in a country, you need to have them dream of sort of the worlds that they want to live in and have access to what we're thinking about, what our anxieties are. And theater can give you sort of a blurry roadmap on how to achieve a certain kind of future if that's the thing that you want to, like, if that's the future that you want. And so, like, in the staircase, at least for me, like, there is a world building thing for these characters and for Hawaiian people that I would love for them to um, dream about and be a part of. But if the mind can't see it, then you can't do it. And so you have to use art and theater to imagine what could be, and then people will start shifting their brains to believing that it's true. Um, and I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. So that's why it's important. Yeah, it's really important. Like, you don't just want to you don't want to live in a world where there's no art and there's no beauty. It contributes a significant part of a full and lived life. My name is Noah Gardner. I am the playwright of The Staircase, and I hope that you come and see this play. And please find me afterwards and let's talk.